Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's event. My name is Ben Williamson. I'm the US Executive Director with Compassion in World Farming. I'm joined today by Julia Johnson, Compassion World Farming's Senior Food Business Manager. We're delighted to spend the next half an hour with you. We're going to be asking Julia some really tough questions. We want to hear from you as well. So please do put your questions to Julia or myself in the chat. And we'll get to them at the end of today's half an hour call. So today is really about hearing from you, hearing from Julia, and talking about our food business program here in the US. So welcome, Julia. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to talk about farm animals today.
Really excited. So beyond Julia's focus on driving improvements in farmed animal welfare, Julia is interested and talented in regenerative agriculture, transitional farming, and ensuring biodiversity in our ecosystems. Julia has a Master's of Science in Anthrozoology from Canisius College and a Master of Divinity from Yale University and a Bachelor of Arts from Michigan State University. Wow, that's quite a load of plaques you're wearing there, Julia. Julia is an equestrian at heart and lives in Michigan with her family and America paint horse, Jameson. So over the next 27 minutes or so, we are hoping to give you an insider's look at key strategies for securing major animal welfare commitments and holding companies to these promises, recent food business milestones, goals for our forthcoming year, and how you can get involved as donors and supporters of Compassion in World Farming. We have Megan joining us in the chat as well, Megan Endicott. So Megan is here to do what she does best, connect with all of you directly on the line. So please, if you have any questions for Julia or myself, just put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible in the 5 minutes or so at the end. So Julia, my first question to you, if you're ready now, is about Compassion World Farming's 2.5 billion animals who are set to benefit from welfare commitments that have been secured by the Global Food Business Program. So that's the US program and our colleagues in the 9 countries in which we operate. So that's a heck of a lot of animals. So tell us how we arrived at that number.
Yeah, great question. So the food business team at Compassion works with the leading food businesses around the world with the largest purchasing power to drive change in the marketplace. By first making a commitment to eliminate cages for laying hens or crates for mother pigs, companies are taking that first step and promising to help farm animals live a more humane life. After that, the food business team then encourages these companies to report progress publicly on how they are doing towards their commitments, because we understand that it takes time for this change to happen. And we even help these companies develop roadmaps or a plan forward for implementation to meet their goals by the agreed upon timeline. Some of these companies include HelloFresh, Walgreens, Panera, Shake Shack, and even pet food companies like Earth Animal that are stepping up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Our food business team is working alongside hundreds of companies around the world, not stopping until cages are no longer used in our food system.
Wonderful, Julia. Thank you for that overview. So drilling down into some of the tools and tactics that you mentioned, Compassion World Farming over the years has developed a number of first of their kind tools, Egg Track, Chicken Track, which monitors the progress of the companies you mentioned we work with against their commitments to ensure transparency and in the marketplace. So how do these tools differ from one another? Maybe you can tell our supporters kind of what are the learnings that we've gathered from the recent publications we put out.
Yeah, absolutely. Egg Track and Chicken Track are wonderful tools, and I'm so honored to work on them because companies really look at us as the leaders in this space for creating these reports. Everyone knows the deadlines for when these reports and when they need to report annually publicly. So it's really exciting to see that companies care about these reports and want to be featured. So to start, both Egg Track and Chicken Track are annual reports that Compassion uses to analyze how companies are doing towards the implementation of better welfare for these chickens, whether they're for laying hens that produce eggs or for broiler chickens that are used for meat. All data has to be publicly available, such as on a company's website. So the first, Egg Track. This is a global report that tracks over 200 global food businesses around the world who have made cage-free commitments for eggs and how they are doing towards implementing these commitments. In the 2022 Egg Track report, we found that despite inflation and the other obstacles that the food industry has endured, companies are still making progress towards these goals. It's so exciting to see that, and it just demonstrates how important this issue is to hundreds of companies. And it's due to the consumer demand. Consumers like yourself are asking for this and are driving this change. And that's how they really hear that this is important to their customers. The most exciting takeaway at this past Egg Track is that in the United States, 1 in 3 eggs is now fully cage-free, which is a huge increase from previous years. This is due to customer demand and company awareness that cages are inhumane and must be eliminated from our food system. The other report that you mentioned, Ben, is Chicken Track, and this one I'm working on right now. It'll be released at the end of March, and this report tracks the U.S. chicken market towards what's called the Better Chicken Commitment. The way that the 9 to 10 billions of broiler chickens or chickens raised for meat are raised in the United States is often in overcrowded, dark, barren environments, and they're bred to grow exponentially fast, sometimes where birds aren't even able to stand up because they weigh so much. So this leads to a lot of physical and emotional distress for these birds. And so the Better Chicken Commitment, often referred to as the BCC in shorthand, ensures that these chickens have brighter barns, which enrichments for them to perch and dust bathe and roost. And they're also from a different breed of chicken that has higher welfare outcomes. So essentially it allows the chicken to be a chicken, which is really important, that it allows them to express these natural behaviors. Over 220 companies in the United States alone have signed on to help the 10 billion birds raised for meat in the United States. Our Chicken Track report analyzes where the broiler chicken marketplace is and the progress being made by many of our favorite companies. Last year, we had 12 companies report progress, and this year we're expecting to double or maybe even exceed that number, which is just so great to see that companies are really taking this seriously and they want to report the progress and the work that they're doing, because we understand that that takes time to make that change. So stay tuned and look out for our 4th edition of Chicken Track that is going to be coming out at the end of March.
Fantastic work, Julia. That's really exciting, and really glad to hear how Chicken Track and Egg Track have grown over the years, and how they're real forces for pressuring companies to do the right thing. And as you said, 220 companies have made a commitment to produce a minimum standard of welfare for chickens. And it's important that we hold them to those promises, and tools like Egg Track and Chicken Track are enabling us to do that. I've been told that there is a donate button on the Facebook page now, so please do click it. Every donation that we receive enables Julia and her colleagues to do the fine work that they're doing, and really hold those companies to account for promises, and keep driving animal welfare improvements in food business. So please do click now, and do remember to ask your questions as well. Put your questions in the chat. So Julia, I want to pivot to sustainability, because that's an issue that's very close to a lot of our supporters' hearts. It gets thrown around a lot by industry, and even by people in our circles. So when it comes to food and farming systems, what exactly does the transition from the status quo to a more planet-friendly future look like?
Oh, it's so important to think about sustainability. So this is a great question. Thanks, Ben. It's important to think about the future and health of our planet, and how we want to change our food system and how farm animals are raised and treated. They aren't the only things that are important with reforming our food system, and thinking about the larger ecosystem is so important for the health of our planet. This means shifting away from intensive, confined operation that billions of animals are currently confined to at this exact moment, and instead return the animals to the land, getting them back outdoors on pasture, enjoying the sunshine and fresh air that they're deserving of, as we are as well. So by rearing sheep and cows on pasture, can be almost entirely eliminated, and the animals' interactions with this environment can support the surrounding ecosystem. Nature is taking care of everything, and it's a very sophisticated system that the industry has taken over and thinks that they may be smarter than Mother Nature herself. So by managing these animals in a particular way, which usually involves grouping them together and moving them around frequently on pasture, they have impact on the land that is very different from what would be like in an unmanaged system. By eating plants, pasture-raised cows can encourage competition and prevent species from taking over in the field, and this increases biodiversity and improves soil quality. So it's really important to think about all of these different pieces and how they all fit together, and realize that agriculture is part of a wider ecosystem. We're all part of this great, beautifully complex planet. And what industrial farming has done is remove that synergy and instead focused on one solution: efficiency. And what you lose with this model, however, is that the health of flora and fauna that evolved to work together in a symbiotic way, and that every piece of the puzzle plays a crucial part. By returning animals to the land and allowing hooves and snouts to restore the earth, it's just such a great visual thinking about animals back on land. We can see that many regenerative farmers and sustainable practices are being implemented now. We're starting to see the change, and that's why Compassion in World Farming is working with these leading food businesses to start to shift the supply chain back to a more regenerative, sustainable model, and that directly impacts animal welfare in a really positive way.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, I mean, it's such an important message that all of this work is connected, animals connected to the earth, and animal welfare improvements actually helping drive the planet back into a more sustainable future. So yeah, I think the important work that you do has knock-on benefits beyond animal welfare and into sustainability in the future of the planet is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to give a shout out to Julie Capiello, who just donated to us. Good to see you, Julie. Thank you very much. And Julia, just turning to some of our proudest achievements over the last year, because people want to know where their money's going and what kind of bang we're delivering for their buck. So what would you say were the biggest food business successes of 2022?
Oh, great question. So the food business team at Compassion has been working diligently this past year to help the billions of farm animals raised for food. We've had a lot of successes, but a few of the highlights from this past year include those 2 reports, Egg Track and Chicken Track, that I mentioned. And that just continues to demonstrate that companies care about the welfare of farm animals, and overall are demonstrating an increase in sourcing from farmers who also value animal welfare. I do want to give a call out specifically for a food business today, because the largest win that we accomplished this year is a company called Delaware North, and they are a global leader in the hospitality and entertainment industry. They announced that they just are committing to a global policy for both laying hens and pigs, which is such a big win for the animals and for Compassion team, just to see this leader in this space. Thanks to the close working relationship with Compassion and World Farming, Delaware North incorporated significant animal welfare policies to eliminate these inhumane battery cages for laying hens that are no longer going to be in their supply chain. And just to picture that, these battery cages are so small, they're often many hens are in one space the size of a piece of paper or an iPad. It's so inhumane and cruel. And so to have a leader in this space step up globally to pledge and move forward to eliminate those is great success. And this would cover not only North America, but the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. And they've reported progress on this too, which is really important too. It's not only just making a commitment, but actually implementing that as well. So this also goes with their policy for gestation crates and eliminating those from their supply chain, and making sure that these mother pigs, or sows that the industry often calls them, are able to express natural behaviors and lay down comfortably and stretch their legs and be together with other sows in this environment, and they can be group housed together. And Delaware North also joined our working group for broiler welfare, which I mentioned the Better Chicken commitment earlier before, but Delaware North is also stepping up to the plate. So they're covering all the different species, and it's really great to see that this leader is stepping up for animals and making a change and really putting the work in where is needed.
Fantastic work, Julia. Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly proud of your team, of everything that you've accomplished over the last year. Just pivoting then, because people donating now are going to want to know what we're going to spend their money on over the coming year. Can you give us a quick run through of the US Food Business Team, let's say top 4 objectives for this year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So similar to the actions that Delaware North has taken, we're going to be continuing to work with companies to make cage-free commitments globally around the world. It's not just an issue in the United States, but it impacts animals all around. And that's why the Compassion Food Business Team is working diligently on all different continents to eliminate cages for these laying hens. And we'll continue to track that progress in Egg Track, which will come out this fall for this previous year. And then in addition to the Chicken Track report, we're going to be helping a lot of companies, especially with our working group for broiler welfare. These are 20 leading food businesses that have stepped up, and we meet regularly with them and work on developing roadmaps and really clearly mapping out that incremental progress to shift the supply chain, because commitments only go so far. We have to really start working and implementing that, and it takes time. So we're there working with these food businesses. Some of the members of the working group include HelloFresh, Panera, Target, and Whole Foods, and there's 20 other ones that we have a total of 20 companies that are members, it was 7 last year. So the fact that we have 13 other companies stepping up, they are eager for our help and want to work with us because they see us as a real partner and ally in the space. So we're going to be continuing to working on broiler chickens. And then this year, we're very excited to work more on getting pigs out of gestation crates in the United States. Our headquarters has worked on that in the past. And now that our food business team has grown in the United States, we're really excited to work more on eliminating this inhumane form of confinement for these mother pigs. They should be able to turn around and lay down and stretch their legs as needed, and for a pig to be a pig. So we're excited to work on that, and we're ramping up that work this year. And all of this would not be possible if we don't continue to visualize the future of our food system and thinking about a more regenerative and a sustainable model. Eliminating cages and crates are so important. It only goes so far, though. We need to really shift our food system and think about how we can get animals back outdoors, having more pasture-based access and live their lives outside. And also this means shifting also to maybe some plant alternatives as well, and looking at some plant-based options for companies to work that into their menus. It's very important to think about higher welfare and reduction, because both go together for shifting and making sure that animals have a more humane life. Yeah, so those are the 4 things we're working on. We're going to be very busy in the United States.
Sounds great, Julia. Yeah, looking forward to it. And thank you so much for all your ambitious plans and that of the team over the coming year. So there's one thing we haven't really expanded on yet, but that's how our supporters can contribute to this high impact, life-changing work. Starting a monthly donation, no matter what the amount, is the simplest and most efficient way to help, because these recurring gifts add up. They provide us with the income security that we can rely on month after month. And it gives us the ability to act without hesitation in defense of animals and people and the planet, as Julia's been describing. But there's more, because right now, as our friends at Mobius are going to give us a 6 times match for every new monthly gift that we receive. So that means if you start a monthly donation today of $10, Mobius will give us 60 in your honor. So if you give right now through the donate button on the Facebook page, Facebook charges no fees, which means that 100% of your contribution goes towards our mission and the excellent work that Julia is doing with the food business team. So Julia, now it's time for the supporter questions, which I'm always so excited by. So I think your comments about meat reduction seem to spark some conversation. So Debbie Wall talked about pasture raising only being able to work if we dramatically reduce our consumption of animal products. So we need to stop subsidizing animal ag, make whole plant-based foods more affordable and available. How are we starting to broach the conversations about meat reduction with companies, and are we seeing any progress there?
We're starting to see some progress, especially with that. It's much more on internal conversations with companies, because this takes time for them to really come up with a plan. But we're hearing it from retailers, from meal kits, from pet food industry even. people are starting to shift and look at how can we diversify our portfolio? How can we help the planet and also help the animals with better welfare? So we're bringing that up in conversations every time we talk to a food business. It's not only important to switch to maybe higher welfare breeds for chickens, but also how can we diversify portfolio so we don't raise as many animals and they can have better welfare as well. So it's definitely important, and it takes time, and we appreciate everyone's support with us at Compassion because it is a big task to take on the food industry, and but it's starting to come up. And the more and more we ask these questions and bring this up, we're seeing this even at industry conferences. There's panels on sustainability and meat reduction and meat alternatives. It's becoming more normal for industry to talk about this. So it's exciting for me to see that it's much more mainstream than it was even just 5 or 10 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Julia. And just to say thank you very much for Valerie Howell, who just donated. Thank you, Valerie. We really appreciate it. Julia, so talking about sustainability a bit more, because we had one question from Elizabeth who talked about which companies are being involved in sustainability. To me, the word sustainability, it's very broad, and it might mean lots of different things to different people. When companies talk about sustainability, is that different to when animal advocates and environmental justice advocates talk about sustainability, or are we narrowing in on what sustainability actually means and what policies are sustainable and what's not sustainable?
Yeah, it is very broad and wide, and there seems to be a bit of a disconnect on how we measure sustainability. I think it's not even so much the definition anymore, but how to measure progress. But we are seeing some uniformity, especially on carbon outputs and transportation, and I mentioned feed earlier as well, and we're really seeing that come up a lot with broiler chickens. That seems to be a big focus, is the feed input for these animals and what they're eating. So yes, it's definitely important. And we're starting to see companies such as Cargill and Danone, which Danone just announced a huge regenerative agriculture push with Compassion in World Farming in the EU. So we're seeing these leaders step up because they're seeing that they can play a really powerful role in shifting the food industry for the better. Yeah, it's these big players that are really making a difference.
Good stuff. And Julia, Patricia, I think kind of linked into this, talks about Delaware North, who you mentioned as a food business partner of Compassion World Farming. They provide food services for the national parks, or several of them. And it makes me think about the New York City hospitals who decided to go default veg, and all of these different, not necessarily food businesses, but types of businesses or organizations that are increasing the amount of sustainable foods on their menus. So do we work with businesses in different types of categories other than just food service and restaurants?
Yeah, we do. And that's a great question, Patricia, just to call out that we have the 5 leading food service providers in the United States as part of our working group for broiler welfare. So it's great to see that they're taking this seriously, and they're looking at their peers and what they're doing and how they want to also step up and make sure that their competitors, they don't fall behind. So it's really great to see that companies like Aramark and Sodexo, Compass Group, and Bon Appetit, as well as Delaware North, are part of it. And it's hard for us as consumers to hear those names because they're not maybe a public brand that you would see in a grocery store, but they are everywhere, from airports to national parks to stadiums. It's all the behind the scenes work. So seeing that these companies are really motivated and want to change and work with us for the better it's really great. And we are working across other sectors as well. We're working with a lot of the major retailers in the United States, as well as meal kit companies, meat box deliveries. And I encourage everyone, if you see a commercial online or your favorite brand in the grocery store, email them, ask them, what are you doing for broiler chickens? What are you doing for pigs? Do you have a real policy on this? Are you in chicken track? Ask them these things because they want to hear from you. You are the ones that are buying their products and are their supporters. So I always encourage everyone, they hear from their consumers more than anyone else. And that's really how we're going to drive change.
There we go. Yeah, very important to be the advocate, be the change that you want to see in the world.
Absolutely.
We had a good question there about which makes me think about Compassion's working style, because some organizations are let's say fairly antagonistic, but that's not really Compassion's working style. So we had a question about should good companies be rewarded for making changes, and other companies be punished through taxes, air, water, land changes if they pollute? So maybe if you could just talk about how compassion chooses to partner and reward through positive reinforcement. I think that's maybe something our supporters would be interested to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So Compassion in World Farming, through our reports, it's always, it's very honest, and we always make sure that any of the progress that we're collecting is on the website of a company. So we want to make sure that that public reporting and transparency is there, so you as the customer can go and also see this information. And we know that it takes time. It's slow progress, but any progress, let's say it's 10% for a company, but that may be 100 million chickens if that's how large they are. So we really want to work with companies that are leaders in this space and really take this seriously and are motivated to make change for animals. It's starting to come up more and more. We're starting to hear from companies that their stakeholders and their board members are asking them questions as well. And so it's coming all the way from the consumer all the way up to board members. Animals are on the minds of everyone right now. So keep up the great work and asking these questions to your companies. And like I said earlier, just email them, go to their contact us page and say, or what are you doing for broiler chickens? Because that really will help them see that this is an important issue for the changing of the better.
Okay, thanks, Julia. We just have a couple of minutes left, so I think just time for one more question. And that's, you mentioned a few ways that supporters can get involved, that they should be the change they want to see, email companies themselves, because companies love hearing from their own customers. How else, what other changes can people make in their daily lives? Or even connecting with Compassion World Farming, how can people become more active if what you're talking about they feel motivated by and want to do something?
Absolutely. So if you don't already, follow us on social media, subscribe to our email list. You're going to hear the latest and breaking news that Compassion has for food businesses. You're going to see it there first. So I would definitely start there. And then you can also start looking at our website and looking for, we have consumer resources as well called Learn Your Labels and our Compassionate Food Guide. That helps you look at what are the meaningful and meaningless labels on products. And it's really important to look for third-party certifications on these products if you choose to eat animal products in the grocery store across meat, dairy, and eggs. And then it's also great to try alternatives and to start looking at different ways that we can diversify our plates, and that we really need to start shifting our consumption for a friendlier, more compassionate plate. So I would start there, looking at our Compassionate Food Guide and learning the labels, and just become a more educated consumer. We need more people like you paying attention to what's on the marketplace and how we can change for good.
Well, Julia, I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for all of the work that you've done over the last year and the work that we're looking forward to doing in the future. Thank you to your colleagues and for all your team members who are helping to drive such significant changes for farmed animals.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone. And just to remind everyone, we do all of this for the animals, and to think about that one pig where she will have that crate opened and step out for the last time is what keeps us all moving forward. So I hope our work inspires you all, and thank you all for your support.
What a good place to leave it. Thank you all for joining us for this Facebook Live event, and we'll hope to see you very soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.